Welcome back to the Rusty Pipes Week 8 Power Rankings. Today we are going to be doing a double feature where I'll be going over both the power rankings and each team's midseason grades. So we'll get right into it. Josh retains the number one spot in the rankings this week and is still in the top of the league standings with a record of 6-1. I give Josh an A+ for his midseason grade as he has been absolutely dominating this year. And with the team he put together, it's impressive. Josh went into the draft with Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill as his keepers, but with no extra picks from trades, he had to work with what he was given. And even with some hiccups like Alexander Mattison, Kyle Pitts, and A.J. Dillon, he put together a great team through the draft. Josh is still yet to make any trades this year to improve on that team, but his only weak spot is really his depth in really all of his positions, running back, receivers, but he looks to be a title contender without needing to make any trades. Either way, the only reason he would have to is if one of his guys got hurt and he needed someone quickly. Number 2 in the rankings belongs to Baby Back Gibbs, owned by Smiley. Just as I predicted, Smiley got back into the win column this past week with a great win over Parlay Melee. I'm giving Smiley an A- for a midseason grade. Another guy that came in with great keepers in CMC and Devonta Smith. Smiley also didn't have a lot of extra picks, but did have 2 5th and 6th rounders from trades last season. He found some sleepers in those rounds with Mike Evans and Jordan Addison, 2 great receivers that are helping his team out, especially Addison with Jay Jettas now being hurt for a lot of the season. At 5-2, Smiley is dominating this year, and as the highest scoring team in the league, he'll be just as difficult to beat as Josh. Schulte comes in as the number 3 team in the rankings this week, also sitting at 5-2. Schultz is on a 3-game win streak after a dominating performance last week over a lowly Sierra's Cuck team. Schultz's midseason grade is a B+. While Schultz is also 5-2, he's doing it with more compared to what Smiley was given. Schultz came in with slightly worse keepers with Travis Etienne and DJ Moore, but both have had breakout seasons, with Travis Etienne being the overall running back 2 or 3 on the year right now. He's just been amazing. Schultz has 2 picks in each of the first 4 rounds and did fairly well, with his only hiccups being at the running back with Dameon Pierce being taken in the 2nd round. He's kind of in a little tough spot right now. And Dalvin Cook being a waste of a 4th rounder, but in hindsight, that was tough to make because Breece Hall still coming off the injury. We didn't know what Dalvin Cook's role would be. He looked like a great pick for at least the first 8 weeks, but he was phased out by week 3. But Schultz reinforced his running backs later in the year with a trade for Jonathan Taylor a couple weeks ago, and he's now in the hunt for a championship. Carson comes in as our number 4 team in the rankings, also sitting at 5-2. Carson's coming off a heartbreaking upset at the hands of his father last week, but is still sitting well in 4th place in the standings. I'm giving Carson an A- midseason grade, as he is performing well even after an up-and-down draft. Carson came into the draft with no 2nd or 6th rounder and still came out strong after finding Raheem the Dream Mostert in the 4th round, a great steal, especially with him just being a bell cow in that high-flying, high-scoring Dolphins offense. He paired him up with Tua, who he took in the 5th round, and matching them up with his keepers in Stephon Diggs and Devonta Adams. Carson's only hiccup in the year is trading Josh Jacobs away, who he took in the 1st round, for Brian Robinson after a slow start from Jacobs. And later, those next 2 weeks, Jacobs broke out for 2 high-scoring games and was flipped for a 1st rounder. But Carson is still only in his 2nd year and is still vying for a championship after barely missing out last year, and he is going strong. Next up in the rankings is Parlay Melee, owned by Reach as our number 5 team. Reach is coming off a loss to Smiley and is currently sitting at 4-3. The reason I have him above Cobb, who we will get to next, is because I still believe that Reach has the better team. I will give Reach, though, a C+ midseason grade, as this team has been underperforming slightly. Reach came in with a flurry of draft picks, and while some hit, others did not. Reach entered the draft with Josh Allen and Calvin Ridley as his keepers, and at this time in the year, only one of those guys is hidden, and I think you can guess which one it is. He made his first draft mistake, taking Najee Harris in the 1st round. It was ahead of guys like Kenneth Walker. That would have been a huge other pick had he not, because then he would have to trade Najee and a 2nd rounder away for Tony Pollard. He did find a steal in the 5th round, though, with DeAndre Swift to make up for that mistake, and later replaced, as I said, Najee with Tony P. I still think this team has title aspirations. It just needs to find more consistency, but I do think they'll hit their stride soon. Wide receiver is one of his weakest spots, but even then, guys like DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley could still have those boom weeks. El Cabo, owned by Cobb, is our next team at our number 6 ranking. Cabo's dropped 2 straight after starting 5-0, and it feels like the cracks are starting to show in this mirage. My midseason grade for El Cabo is a B+, as he is overperforming from where we had him projected in the preseason. Came into the draft with 2 great keepers in Ja'Marr Chase and Austin Eckler, but had no picks in the first 2 rounds. He worked his magic, though, and found Jamal Williams 2.0 and David Montgomery, but this time, D-Mont gets the yardage with the touchdowns, unlike what Jamal Williams did. And he found Nico Collins, great wide receiver on the Houston Texans, C.J. Stroud's number 1 target in the 7th round. He then made 2 great waiver pickups at running back, grabbing Zach Moss and Jerome Ford to solidify that backfield while Austin Eckler has been hurt for most of the start of the year. This team is good, especially after adding Jalen Hurts at QB, replacing Dak Prescott, who was struggling. But seeing Cobb hasn't won against a legit title contender lately, he could be one and done in the playoffs, just like the Dallas Cowboys. Our number 7 ranking goes to Suck My Wake, owned by Richie. Richie is currently at 4-3 and is still battling in this league despite horrendous injuries to his team this year. Richie lost both his keepers to horrendous season-ending injuries, being Nick Chubb and Jay Jettis, who Jay Jettis was traded away in a package deal to Matt Schultz to acquire some healthier players to help him make that playoff push and keep those aspirations alive. Richie's midseason grade is an A-. Being 4-3 after losing both your stars like that is still impressive, as well as not coming into the year with any first or third rounder in the draft. Richie did make use of the lack of early picks that he had in the draft, grabbing Kenneth Walker in the 2nd round, and is now being rewarded with his Drake London and Dalton Kincaid picks, as both have performed great lately and are starting to hit those breakouts. He also made an amazing waiver pickup after week 1, grabbing the ageless Adam Thielen, who was having a monster year in Carolina. Richie's has made some bad moves so far, though, dropping all $100 of his fab on Ezekiel Elliott after missing out on Jerome Ford a couple weeks before, and trading a 2nd rounder for James Conner, who was immediately put on IR after being hurt, even though it was reported before the trade had even gone through that he was hurt, and Richie still accepted it. Richie still has a good chance at the playoffs and could surprise a team or two in the 1st round. He always has a knack for making those runs as a low seed, and we'll see how he performs this year. Drone Tree Trimmer is at our number 8 ranking this week. Jay is coming off 2 huge wins to put him at 3-4 and keep his playoff hopes alive. And after making a trade for Lamar, he can compete with the top teams, as he showed this past week with the win over Carson. Jay's midseason grade is an overall C, as he came in with a solid draft on paper, but injuries and overall underperformance has hurt him. His 2 first-round picks in Saquon Barkley and CeeDee Lamb haven't produced as he hoped, although Saquon has produced when he's on the field, but injuries have knocked him off for half of the first year. It's tough to say. It's knocked him out for half of the first half of the year. We'll call it that. But both CD and Saquon can give him those big games. CD has just been up and down. He can have those 25-point performances that are nice, but he can also have those 6 to 8-point duds. Kelsey is still on this team, though, as he came in as one of Jay's keepers. Lamar and now healthy Saquon are the cornerstones to this team, and Jay can still do some damage. He's making a run for the 8th seed and looks to make a Cinderella run in the playoffs. Now we get to the team of false hope and disappointment. Not So Dangerous, owned by Michael, is at the number 9 ranking this week. Michael is currently 2-5 and has already moved on next year. His midseason grade is a D, both for his draft and season performance. He came into the draft with Jonathan Taylor and Rondre Stevenson as his keepers, who had up and down starts to the year. Obviously, JT with injuries and Ramondre with just tough matchups against some good defenses, but both are now performing well and are projected to look great the rest of the year. The first of many draft mistakes, though, was made in the 2nd round with Miles Sanders and Amari Cooper, both picked right before Breece Hall and Keenan Allen, who are having monster years, and Breece Hall looking like a great keeper. Then Joe Burrow in the 3rd round kind of crashed the season right there, as all 3 of those picks would deal with injuries or inconsistent QB play in the Amari Cooper corner. He salvaged some of the season by finding the best wide receiver waiver wire pickup in a guy named Puka Nacua. You may have heard of him. But Michael has sold off and gained some draft picks, but also lost a third rounder in a misread trade that dropped his midseason grade down some more. I still hear reports Michael still has quality players that he's looking to trade near the deadline, but that is for another time. Sierra's Cuck, owned by Russell Wilson Amadon, is our number 10 team in the rankings. Russell is currently sitting at 2-5 as well and is aiming for the highest draft pick possible. He gets a C- midseason grade as he didn't come in with as much expectations as Michael, but still could have competed. He came into the year with Sun God and Tony P as his keepers, and had a tough start of the draft with no second or third rounder. He did find some steals both in the draft and free agency. He took Adam Thielen in the 9th round, but dropped him after week 1. He did have a tough 3-point performance, but Richie picked him up, and now he's just been great. He did grab the best waiver running back pickup of the year in Devon Achane, who Russ has claimed to be one of his keepers for next year. He is hurt right now, but I still believe he is better than any of the other guys like Zach Moss or Jerome Ford that was picked up. Had he been healthy, he could have been amazing still. Our number 11 ranking belongs to Shazimler's List, owned by our commissioner, Mike Moore, and is currently at 1-6 on the year and is sold off, preparing for next year. I've given him 2 grades. One is a winner and one for his overall expectations and plans. As a winner, Mike gets a D- for a midseason grade, kind of like the rest of us, like me and Russ. But taking where his draft position and early picks were, Mike gets an A grade for tanking for next year, as he secured 3 first and 3 third rounders for next year already. Mike came in with King Henry and Lamar as his keepers, but had 1 pick in the first 4 rounds, and that being a third rounder, which was used to pick Cam Akers. And any of you that are following NFL at least somewhat closely, you know Cam Akers got phased out pretty quickly at the Rams and is now a backup on the Vikings. His next few picks were good, though, as he grabbed Mike Williams and Christian Kirk. Kirk, I believe, was traded, and he got some, or I could be wrong there, but has made some good trades. Jacoby Myers was just traded to Carson for a third rounder. He did give up his own 4th, but that's another round up. Mike doesn't have much left to trade, and with young guys like waiver pickup Jaleel McLaughlin and late picks Jameson Williams and Marvin Mims, Mike is just hoping to lose out and possibly steal the pick 101 from UD. Final team this week is Juicy Bear, owned by UD. Very disappointing year for UD, as he didn't come in with many actual issues, being bad keepers or bad draft picks, just very bad injury luck. But even then, I'll be giving UD the only F grade of these midseason grades, as he currently sits at 0-7. UD came in with Jalen Hurts and T. Higgins as his keepers, and although Higgins has struggled either with injuries or just inconsistency in the offense, it's still, I can't really put it all on Higgins, and it's still on you. I can't take that away from what I've given him in his grade. But the injuries are what got him in the draft, as he still had most of his draft picks. I think the only one he was missing was maybe a 4th or a 5th rounder. He still had a lot of those early picks. But the injuries, he took 3 injury-prone running backs with his first 3 picks with Aaron Jones, J.K. Dobbins, and James Conner, although he was able to trade James Conner away for a second, so he did get some return on that. He did find a hidden gem in Sam Laporta in the 8th, but UD has the largest failed expectations of these kind of bottom dwellers and is currently eyeing up next year's pick 101 and whoever that player may be. That is all for this week's power rankings and this year's midseason grades. I'll be back very soon with our Week 8 predictions. Thank you.